started like any other Monday morning. Aarushi Kapoor, a 38-year-old marketing consultant in Toronto, woke up with what she assumed was a seasonal bug. Slight sore throat, body ache, and a low-grade fever. Nothing a bit of paracetamol and rest couldn't handle. She had just returned from a trip to New York for a client meeting and chalked the fatigue up to travel stress. Her 6-year-old daughter, Mira, had had a cold the week before, and her husband Rohan had complained of being tired over the weekend. "We're just passing something around," she told herself. Aarushi was the kind of woman who rarely got sick. She worked full-time, ran the household, picked up Mira from dance class, and still made time to FaceTime her parents in Delhi every other night. She didn't have time to be sick. But something felt different. By Wednesday, the fever was still hovering around 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Not high enough to be alarming, but it was stubborn. Her throat didn't hurt anymore, but her lower back began to ache. She blamed the hours spent at her desk. She went to her local walk-in clinic and was seen by a doctor who barely looked up from his screen. "Viral infection. Just rest. Fluids. Tylenol. You'll be fine in a few days," he said, handing her a printout of generic flu care tips. Aarushi nodded, not wanting to seem difficult. She hated being a problem patient. But inside, a small voice whispered something wasn't right. By the following Monday, things had gotten worse. Aarushi now had night sweats, drenching ones. Her sheets were soaked each morning, her pajamas clinging to her skin. She told herself it might be early perimenopause. She'd read a blog about that recently. Or maybe it was the flu taking longer than usual. She Googled, persistent fever 2 weeks, night sweats after flu, back pain flu recovery. Nothing jumped out as dangerous. The flu can linger, she told herself. It happens. But when she looked in the mirror that Wednesday, she gasped. Her face was pale, lips dry, and her eyes sunken. Her clothes fit looser than usual. She'd lost nearly 6 pounds in 2 weeks without trying. She called her GP's office. They were fully booked for 3 weeks. She left a message with reception. That night, her husband suggested the ER. Aarushi resisted. "I don't want to waste their time," she said. "They'll just tell me it's viral again." But something in Rohan's eyes told her he was scared, and that made her scared too. The ER at St. Michael's was packed. Aarushi waited 4 hours before being called in. A younger doctor, maybe in his early 30s, listened intently as she described her symptoms. "I've had low-grade fever for over 10 days, night sweats, back pain, and now weight loss." The doctor ordered blood work and a chest x-ray. 2 hours later, he came back, his expression unreadable. "Aarushi," he said gently, "some of your blood results are concerning. Your white blood cell count is high, and there are abnormalities in your liver enzymes and calcium levels. I'm going to admit you overnight for more tests." Aarushi blinked. "Wait, what kind of abnormalities?" "We don't know yet," he said, "but we want to rule out some serious conditions." That night, she lay in a hospital bed with an 4 in her arm and monitors beeping around her. Her phone buzzed with texts from Mira. "Mama, when are you coming home?" She didn't reply. Somewhere deep in her gut, she already knew. This wasn't the flu. The next morning brought an early knock on her hospital door. Aarushi stirred to see a tall, silver-haired man in a white coat step in with a clipboard. His name tag read, Dr. Michael Tran, Hematology/Oncology. Her heart skipped. "Oncology?" He introduced himself kindly and explained, "We're seeing some patterns in your blood work that require more investigation. You have elevated white blood cells and unusual calcium levels. Your X-ray showed some abnormalities around your lymph nodes. We'd like to do a CT scan of your chest and abdomen." Aarushi blinked. "You think I have cancer?" Dr. Tran paused. "We're not saying that yet, but we want to rule it out." The word cancer hit her like a slap. All this time, she thought she had the flu. That same small voice, the one that whispered weeks ago that something was wrong, was now screaming. The CT scan took place that afternoon. Lying still in the cold tube, Aarushi stared up at the blank white ceiling and thought about her life, her daughter's upcoming school recital, the unfinished marketing project due next week, her father's birthday Zoom call she had missed the night before. She had no history of major illness, no smoking, no drinking. She exercised, well, sometimes, ate mostly healthy food. How could this be happening? Hours passed. At 5:30 p.m. Dr. Tran returned. This time, he sat down beside her bed. He didn't sugarcoat it. Aarushi. The CT scan confirms enlarged lymph nodes in multiple regions. Under your arms, around your abdomen, and in your chest. We suspect it may be non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Likely stage 3 or 4, based on how widespread it appears. Her stomach dropped. She didn't cry, at first. Is it treatable? She asked, barely able to form the words. Yes, Dr. Tran said. Lymphoma can respond well to chemotherapy and targeted therapies. But we need a biopsy to confirm the exact type. We'll schedule that immediately. Aarushi nodded, numb. That night, as the city lights twinkled through her hospital window, she stared into the darkness. Her phone buzzed again. Mira had sent a voice note. Hi, Mama. Daddy says you're okay, but I miss you. I left my drawing under your pillow. It's you, me, and Papa holding hands at the beach. Aarushi burst into tears. This couldn't be her life. She was a healthy 38-year-old woman with a daughter still learning to tie her shoes. A woman who had been told she probably had a virus and needed fluids. And now she was staring down a potential stage for cancer diagnosis. All from a fever and back pain. The procedure was scheduled for Saturday. A small lymph node under her left arm would be removed for analysis. The doctor explained they needed to determine the subtype of lymphoma. It could change everything about her treatment. She was awake but groggy from the local anesthesia. As she lay on the gurney afterward, her mind drifted to her childhood in Delhi, where her mother used to say, "The body whispers before it screams." Back then, Aarushi had laughed it off, but now the whisper had become a siren, and she had almost missed it. The pathology report came back on Tuesday. It confirmed what Dr. Tran had suspected: diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, an aggressive but treatable cancer. It's advanced, but you're young and otherwise healthy, Dr. Tran said. We'll start chemotherapy immediately. The sooner we begin, the better your chances. Aarushi nodded. This was real. She was now a cancer patient, not just someone with flu-like symptoms, not just tired or overworked or perimenopausal. She looked down at the hospital ID band on her wrist and whispered, I'm not going to let this take me down. The chemotherapy started on a rainy Thursday. The first round of R-CHOP, a cocktail of powerful drugs, was administered through in 4 while Aarushi sat in a recliner surrounded by other patients, each one with their own diagnosis, their own journey. The nurse warned her about side effects: fatigue, nausea, hair loss, risk of infections. She didn't expect it to hit so fast. By that evening, Aarushi couldn't keep down even water. The nausea gripped her like a vice. Her head throbbed. Her legs trembled just walking to the bathroom. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back. Her thick black hair, once her pride, had already begun shedding on her pillow. Clumps at first, then handfuls. She texted Rohan, Can you bring me Mira's drawing? I need to see it. He showed up the next day, carrying a framed version of the beach picture Mira had drawn. Aarushi smiled through her cracked lips as she held it against her chest. That drawing became her anchor, her reason. But alongside the physical struggle came something else. The mental torment of how long she had waited to seek real care. At it had been nearly 3 weeks from her first fever to her diagnosis. She kept replaying it in her head. What if I had insisted on better tests earlier? What if I hadn't dismissed the weight loss as stress? What if I hadn't tried to be polite to a doctor who brushed me off? The truth was hard to face. She had ignored her own instincts. Arushi's second round of chemo was even harder. This time, she was admitted overnight for observation. She developed mouth sores, making it painful to eat. Her immune system crashed, and she needed 4 antibiotics for an infection scare. One night, the woman in the bed next to hers, a breast cancer patient in her 50s, started sobbing. Aarushi reached out and gently touched her wrist. No words, just the quiet comfort of someone who understood. Cancer had a strange way of making strangers into allies. It home. Rohan was doing his best, managing Mira's school runs, work meetings, groceries, laundry. Arushi's mother-in-law had flown in from Delhi to help, but the guilt still gnawed at her. She'd always been the strong one, the planner, the doer. Now she was the patient, the one who needed help to walk from bed to the bathroom. But worse than the physical dependence was the gnawing thought she couldn't shake. What if her delay in action had cost her a better outcome? She began writing in a journal, a suggestion from her hospital's cancer support counselor. I didn't know. I didn't want to believe it. I thought only old people or smokers got cancer. I thought I was healthy enough. I thought I was safe. I was wrong. Hope, but with scars after the third cycle of chemo. Scans showed that the tumors were shrinking. Dr. Tran was optimistic. Arushi's response to treatment was better than expected, though she still had a long road ahead. But the treatment had taken a toll. She couldn't taste food anymore. Her eyebrows and eyelashes were gone. Her body felt foreign, like a house after a storm. Same walls, same roof, but everything inside had shifted. Still, she was alive, and fighting. One evening, as she sat on her couch wrapped in a blanket, Mira crawled into her lap and said, "Mama, you're still beautiful." Aarushi didn't cry. She smiled and kissed her daughter's forehead. Because even if cancer had stolen parts of her, it had also given her something back. Clarity, strength, and a voice that no longer ignored whispers. 3 months past. 6 brutal cycles of chemotherapy were finally behind her. Her final PET scan showed no signs of active disease. Dr. Tran said the words she dared not hope for. "You're in remission." The relief hit harder than the diagnosis. Aarushi cried. Not the terrified sobs of a woman afraid to die, but the full-bodied tears of someone who had clawed their way back from the edge. She was still here, still standing. But remission didn't mean life simply picked up where it had left off. Her hair began growing back in uneven patches, soft and fine like a baby's. She wore a scarf to Mira's school play, where her daughter stood on stage wearing a paper sun and belted out her lines proudly. Aarushi clapped, tears running down her cheeks, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming, gut-deep gratitude of being there. But at home, things were different. Fatigue lingered. Her muscles ached after small walks. Her immune system was still fragile. She couldn't go to crowded places or eat raw food. Mira had to wash her hands constantly. Even a minor cold could mean hospitalization. The fear hadn't gone away. It had just changed shape. What they didn't warn her about, what no pamphlet explained, was how mentally disorienting survivorship could be. The day after her remission appointment, Aarushi stood in her kitchen and felt paralyzed. For months, every day had been about survival. Appointments, scans, blood work, medications. Now, suddenly, there was silence. Her body was healing, but her mind was restless. Was it really over? Would it come back? Every ache made her anxious. Every small fever sent her spiraling into worst-case scenarios. She joined an online support group for young adults with lymphoma. One message stood out. Remission isn't the end of the battle. It's just the next chapter. Returning to work wasn't easy either. Her boss, thankfully, was supportive, but Aarushi felt out of place in Zoom meetings, surrounded by discussions on client KPIs and campaign analytics. It felt trivial. "I used to think this was life and death," she told Rohan one night. "Now I know what real life and death looks like." Her perspective had shifted. Completely. So, she pitched a new idea to her company. A wellness-focused campaign series on health awareness and early symptom recognition, especially for women. The proposal wasn't just accepted, it went viral internally. For the first time, her experience felt like more than just pain. It had purpose. When her friend Tara asked if she'd be open to sharing her story on a health podcast, Aarushi hesitated. Then she remembered how close she had come to not catching it in time. She sat in front of a microphone and spoke. "I thought I had the flu. Maybe stress, maybe burnout, but it was cancer. I ignored the weight loss, the night sweats, the back pain because they didn't seem serious. And honestly, some of my doctors did too. But your body whispers before it screams. And if I had kept waiting, I wouldn't be here to tell you this." The episode got thousands of downloads. Emails poured in from listeners, some thanking her, others admitting they had similar symptoms. Aarushi realized something. Her survival wasn't just a gift. It was a responsibility. With her company's support, Aarushi launched a short video series titled Behind the Symptoms. It featured survivors like her telling their real stories. A young teacher whose headaches turned out to be a brain tumor, a dad who thought he had a pulled muscle. It was heart failure, a 26-year-old woman whose acne was actually a hormonal imbalance from PCOS. The tagline? Don't dismiss it. Don't delay. Listen to your body. It resonated deeply. A year later, Aarushi stood on the same beach from her daughter's drawing. The sky was streaked with pink and gold. Mira was digging in the sand, her tiny hands patting down a castle. Rohan spread out a blanket behind them, holding up a flask of masala chai like a proud dad on picnic duty. The wind tugged gently at Arushi's now short, curly hair. A reminder of the storm she had weathered and survived. She closed her eyes, inhaling the salty breeze. This moment, this life, it almost didn't happen. Earlier that week, she'd gone for her 1-year remission scan. The anticipation in the waiting room was like sitting in front of a ticking clock. When Dr. Tran walked in with a smile, Arushi's breath caught. All clear. 2 words. That was it. 2 words that rebuilt her world. Since her podcast and video series took off, Aarushi had become a small but growing voice in health advocacy. What started as a single story became a global platform. Her YouTube channel, BehindTheSymptoms, began featuring stories from across the world. A nurse in Toronto who ignored a persistent cough until it was lung cancer, a teen from London who was misdiagnosed with anxiety but had thyroid disease, a man from Chennai who treated headaches with herbs, not knowing it was a brain tumor. Each story ended with the same on-screen reminder: don't wait for permission to advocate for your health. She had created something bigger than herself, something that might save lives. One morning, Aarushi opened an email with the subject line, "You saved my daughter." A woman from Georgia wrote that her 19-year-old had been losing weight and sweating at night. Doctors told them it was likely stress from college. But the mother had heard Arushi's story, and it felt eerily familiar. She pushed for a PET scan. It was stage 2 Hodgkin's lymphoma. Caught early. Treatable. Under control. "I don't know how to thank you," the email said. "You gave me my daughter's life." Aarushi stared at the screen, tears falling silently. She had once wondered why this had happened to her. Now, maybe, just maybe, she had her answer. Her journey hadn't just transformed her body and career. It had reshaped her relationships. With Rohan, there was a deeper tenderness. Fewer arguments about grocery lists. More conversations about meaning, parenting, presence. With Mira, there was intention. Every bedtime story, every silly drawing, every giggle. She soaked it in like sunlight. One evening, Mira asked, "Mama, why do people get sick?" Aarushi paused. "Sometimes our bodies try to tell us something is wrong, but we don't listen fast enough. That's why Mama helps people learn to listen better." "Like superheroes?" Aarushi smiled. Exactly like that. Cancer no longer defined her, but it had rewritten her. She no longer worried about having a spotless kitchen. She stopped putting off vacations or waiting for the right time to rest. She practiced yoga on her balcony each morning, not to burn calories, but to honor her breath. She no longer whispered when something felt off, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Her health had nearly been stolen in silence. Now she spoke loudly, and the world was listening.